Folks, it is day 2 of the Michael Slager punishment hearing in South Carolina. The former North Charleston, South Carolina police officer who shot and killed Walter Scott is facing up to a life in prison. Of course, you might remember Scott was shot in the back as the unarmed black man ran away after a traffic stop in April of 2015. Slager's state murder trial ended in a hung jury in 2016. Of course, in May, he pleaded guilty to violating Scott's civil rights, facing up to life in prison and a $250,000 fine for excessive force. But his attorney is fighting for a lesser sentence, saying Slager was only responding to Scott resisting arrest. Joining us right now from Charleston, South Carolina is Meg Kennard, political legal affairs reporter for the Associated Press. She has been covering this. Meg, exactly what happened yesterday?
Good morning, Roland. Yes, yesterday the government opened their case for the sentencing of Michael Slager. They put up 3 witnesses. The first was one who has become known to all of us since this happened 2.5 years ago, Phaeton Santana. That's the barber who videoed the shooting and the chase on his cell phone as he was walking to work. Santana was on the stand for several hours. He testified about exactly what he saw, why he decided to video it, and also talked about threats that he's received since going public as the person who shot that video. We also heard from a state police agent who interviewed Slager several days after the shooting. And the last witness we heard from yesterday was an FBI expert who enhanced that cell phone video that Santana had shot, specifically to show where Michael Slager's stun gun fell during the fight. That stun gun has been a big piece of this case, both the state trial and the federal trial. Slager's attorneys have always argued that he and Scott fought over the stun gun, and that's why Slager said he feared for his life and ended up shooting Scott. The prosecution has a very different take on all of that, and in their video yesterday showed that that stun gun lay on the ground several feet behind the officer when the shooting happened, well out of the reach of Walter Scott.
Now, you've covered a lot of different trials, and so is this unusual that you would have, in essence, a retrying of the case in a sentencing hearing?
That is pretty much what this feels like. We're going through a lot of the evidence that we saw in the state case last year, which, as you mentioned, ended with no verdict. The jurors couldn't agree. This time it's only a judge and a federal judge who is deciding what Michael Slager's fate will be. He has all of this evidence. The judge has the full state case file, so it's nothing that he doesn't already know about. But this is the opportunity for attorneys on both sides in the federal case to officially get all of that information on the record, and also perhaps to try to tell a different side of the story. Yesterday, when Santana was on the stand for several hours, Michael Slager's defense attorney grilled him about some statements that he had made during the state case, basically trying to get Santana in a lie about certain things he had said. Santana came through it pretty easily. He didn't waver on the information that was presented. But you're absolutely right. It does feel like we're going through a second trial, and for a federal sentencing hearing, a lot of times that is what we end up seeing.
All right then, Meg Kennard, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Roland. Talk to you later.
Let's go to our panel. Robert Patillo, attorney and host of CBS Radio in Atlanta. Wendy Osefo, political analyst and professor of education at Johns Hopkins University. Douglas Sloan, co-founder of the National Capital Strategy Group, folks. Again, in essence, we're having a second trial. Well, I mean, he's pled guilty.
Well, I think this is the importance of us understanding what Jeff Sessions is doing at the Justice Department right now, that we have to have these important backstops. When the state is unable to get a conviction for murder, this is the most clear case of murder that you can see. Somebody running away, being shot in the back by an officer who then lied. So he should have been convicted of murder at the state level. So understanding this and understanding the way that the federal system works as that backstop, of course they're going to try to make it a second trial. Of course the defense attorneys are going to try to, in any way, try to mitigate his his culpability. He should be sentenced to the fullest extent of the law. And the fact that people are still supporting him despite the video evidence just shows how broken the system is.
Well, let's be honest. It's not like the Jeff Sessions Department of Justice is really that interested in officers being held accountable. I mean, the reality is this was a plea bargain that took place, really led by the Obama Justice Department. But the bottom line is what you have here is shocking that you actually have an officer who's pleading guilty to civil rights violations who actually will be heading to prison.
Right, right. And I look at this case and I can't help but think of Betty Shelby, of Sean Williams, who shot John Crawford, Betty Shelby, who shot Terrence Crutcher, Dan Pantello, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, with Eric Garner, all these officers.
Who is yet to face civil rights charges.
Any charges.
I don't know what they're waiting on in terms of.
The grand jury declined to indict, or the feds didn't bring charges. So we have a wealth, I could go on and on. We have a wealth, a plethora of different officers out there that have gotten off with cold-blooded murder. Yep. So it is good to see, yes, we're finally seeing one officer brought to justice, but I can't help but stop and think. I just went through the list last night of all these different officers that just got off with cold-blooded murder.
Wendy?
It makes your blood boil.
Absolutely, and I think we cannot negate the fact that race and bias, both implicit and explicit, has a role in what's going on here. He said, and his attorney tried to make the case, that there is no issue of racial bias in this case, but what I found really interesting was he said, once he looked at Crutcher, once he looked at Scott, he said, I am in trouble. You were in trouble because he's running away. He's running away. You shot 8 times, hit him 5 times, but the first thing in which you lean to and what you hold on to is the fact that you're in trouble. You're not in trouble. You were fearful. And it is this continuous narrative that we hear when black men and black women are put in peril. And they always say, even in the cases, they said, you know what, he looked like a monster. That's what they were saying. He looked, and I don't understand
with
that.
Our hands up.
Right.
And this is why whenever I hear this argument where people are saying, well, why are they protesting? What exactly they're angry about? This is
Hello.
This is exhibit A, B, C through Z of what people are protesting for, what people are upset about. The fact that even that you need a civil rights violation and not a murder conviction at the state level. The fact that we have to have these backstops. We have to depend on the Justice Department to bring in justice, and it becomes a political decision. It becomes a question of who is the Attorney General at the time, whether or not this crime will be prosecuted. And it's very likely that if this conviction had happened later and was the Jeff Sessions Justice Department negotiating it, that he wouldn't be facing these series of violations.
Oh, I don't think that'll be the case if this was the Jeff Sessions Justice Department that was over this particular case.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no.
That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.